And we know that teaching children to read is scientifically proven will help them have a solid foundation. I know that Governor DeWine and the General Assembly are working to make science of reading resources available to all schools, and I'm proud to show him today how our students are learning and growing. And now I would like to welcome Governor.
Rebecca, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Rebecca, thank you very much. Fred and I really enjoyed going into the classroom and seeing the kids. And this is it's always exciting and inspiring, and we thank the teachers. I think you had one teacher there who's been there for 39 years, which is amazing. And on kind of a personal note, some of you may have picked it up in the classroom, but Brian was actually a student here. So, as well as your own kids, right? Your own kids as well. So, you may wonder how we ended up here at the Columbus Montessori education, but that's one of the reasons. You know, this is a busy and exciting time of year for parents or for grandparents as we watch kids start thinking about going back to school. And so, Fran and I wanted to take this opportunity to announce our new initiative focused on literacy. And we're calling this ReadOhio. ReadOhio encompasses all of our efforts to work to improve the literacy skills of Ohioans of all ages, early childhood through adulthood. It's never too early, it's never too late to learn to read or to enhance your reading skills. There are many instructional methods out there, but the proven best way to teach reading is through the science of reading instruction. Science of reading, of course, refers to the research that has been conducted for decades by scientists and reading researchers that shows there is an actual science to reading. And certain reading skills need to be taught, and that certainly includes phonics. Students at this school are being taught using the Montessori method, which is aligned certainly with the science of reading, as you've heard from Rebecca. And we did enjoy very much sitting in on the classroom. Throughout the spring, Fran and I visited schools throughout Ohio that use the science of reading methods. I think we're in 12 or 13 different schools. And we want to share with everyone what we saw and what we have learned. I asked our team to, after going out to those schools, to produce a video and that could be used by anyone to really explain what the science of reading is. And we thought the best way to do that was through students and through teachers, through educators. That they are the ones that are working with students every single day. Ohio teachers are already successfully using a variety of science of reading methods in their classrooms. Today we will debut that video and make it available to everyone at education.ohio.gov/readohio. Again, that's education.ohio.gov/readohio. Read Ohio, one word. We hope that schools will share this with staff and parents so they can gain a better understanding of the method that will soon be implemented in all Ohio schools. So now, let's go ahead, and Amber, you can play the video.
I see a lot of growth when I look out at them. The science of reading, it's proven that it works and that it produces better readers. G-G. It's literally like a roadmap to reading, as well as like to their brain.
The word is, there we go, kiss your brains.
We want to be the best elementary school in the state of Ohio. I believe that if you teach kids how to read fundamentally, then you teach them to be critical thinkers. And if you teach them to be critical thinkers, you empower them to go into the world.
As snakes.
We just sound it and then we keep trying it until we get the word. I clap them out. It makes it easier for me to understand.
Easier because there is actual brain science involved in the science of reading methods.
Different parts of the brain work in unison systematically when you see a word or hear a word.
When someone is learning to read, pathways in the brain must be built. Science shows that when readers read, the brain activates letter recognition with the sounds that letters make to the meaning of the word. Explicit instruction helps to build these pathways.
Through instructional strategies that are based on the science of reading, we're able to help kids make those connections.
Dr. Dottie Erb, a prior skeptic, now embraces science of reading methods, which have been infused into teaching future teachers at Marietta College.
It is immoral to ignore what science tells us that will inform the way that we teach reading. This is a game changer.
The science of reading refers to 50 years worth of research from around the world about the brain, how proficient reading and writing develop, why some kids have difficulty, and how to assess, teach, and improve outcomes. Dr. Melissa Weber-Mayer, the Ohio Department of Education's literacy chief, explains that the science-based teaching includes 5 key skills.
They are phonemic awareness, which is the sounds that we hear. It is phonics, which is connecting sounds and letters, so identifying letters, but also knowing all of the sounds that those letters make, because letters make more than one sound. It is the amount of vocabulary that we know and are exposed to. It is fluency, and fluency in how fast can I decode a word and how accurately can I decode the word. And then comprehension, which is, do I bring meaning to what I'm reading? So part of what's happening in your brain is as you're being taught in this explicit, systematic, sequential way, your brain is putting this into your working memory so you can apply this later when you come to words that you don't know.
Dr. Weber-Mayer believes the move to science of reading instruction, which only some Ohio schools have made, is urgent. 40% of Ohio's third graders are not proficient readers. It is urgent, which is why, in places like Cincinnati, Dayton, and Heath, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine and First Lady Fran DeWine are watching the science of reading instruction in action, while pushing for every Ohio student, K through 12, to receive this science-based, systematic approach.
We know that reading proficiency dictates quality of life. We can make a huge difference in the lives of Ohio students.
We saw nearly double a percentage in annual growth for their iReady assessments. It is absolutely worth the investment, and I would argue that it is the highest lever for improving student outcomes as it relates to early literacy.
Sing, swing. What rhyme?
We're usually separating words and making them and spelling them and just fun stuff like that. How do you feel, old friend? I love reading. I read almost every night. It gives me enough confidence to break out any word that I don't feel confident in.
And be thinking, what does the word say now?
And I'm proud that I have that much confidence because my teacher taught me how to gain it.
The C makes the sound.
It is so fun to see the light bulbs going off when students are listening, speaking, writing, using tactile activities. All parts of the brain are being activated. When my students first took the district diagnostic assessment, we had 61% of my third graders below or well below grade level. Now we have 63% of students at or above grade level.
It was not about poverty, it was not about students' home life, it was about what we can do, what is in our control in this building, what practices can we put in place to make sure that our kids are literate and that they can read.
You tell me the whole word. Are you ready? Tap along with me.
Our students in grades 3 through 5 engage in vocabulary instruction every single day, build background knowledge, learning the definitions, using it in sentences, talking with partners.
It feels good to have our parents walk in during our literacy nights and say, hey, thank you for doing this. I can use this with my family at home or with my kids.
K through 2nd grade. Our students engage in phonemic awareness activities every single day. Activities typically include rhyming, segmenting, blending, onset and rhyme. This activity helps them to understand how words are put together and taken apart.
When I think about literacy, I think of the great equalizer. It's equity. It gives them access.
T-U-C-K.
3rd grade proficiency test scores jumped from 50% to 91% over a 4-year period at Riverside Elementary.
Today, what you're going to do is practice doing tap it, map it, graph it, zap it.
Literacy specialist Margot Schiff works with teachers and even the new principal
S-T-O-P.
Zap it.
Stop.
Nice.
to support science of reading instruction.
This district is willing to pay to have their teachers continue, the new teachers come in so that everyone speaks the same language. From intervention specialist to the speech language pathologist, to the kindergarten teacher, to the 6th grade teacher, everyone can talk the same thing.
At the beginning of the year, I was reading 6 words per minute.
And today,
I can read 101 words in a minute.
early reading achievement has a multiplier effect, creating more and more opportunities, which is why teachers are passionate about the science of reading methods they are seeing transform students every single day.
I want them to have the same chances that their other peers may have.
I want to be a pharmacological scientist. I want to be a pediatrician. I want to be a realtor. I want to be a scientist.
When they come to school, they should get what they need in order to be successful in this world. They deserve that as children.
Good things are coming. It's a start to empowering every child to meet their potential and do what they can do.
We want to thank the students and the educators who participate in that video. Also want to thank Eve and Eric of our team who actually produced it. But I think what was just shown is a pretty good reflection of what we saw as we traveled around the state of Ohio. And the most important thing to me is what teachers said. Teachers have used the science of reading. Many of them had used other methods. Many of them had not bought into the science of reading, and just to listen to them talk about it and how excited they were and how excited their students were and how excited the parents were. Our goal is that all students must have this same opportunity in the state of Ohio, and that is what we intend to do. Any Ohio school that's not already using a curriculum aligned with this proven method will begin aligning to it this school year. This change is a result of legislation that I asked the legislature to pass, and I also asked the legislature to provide money to make sure that this could in fact happen in every school in the state of Ohio. Through that budget, we receive the backing of the General Assembly, Democrats, Republicans, to secure the funding to tackle Ohio's reading deficit. That funding will help do, and let me just go through some of the things that we'll do. Pay for the cost of high-quality instructional materials that are aligned with the science of reading for public schools that do not have them. 2, support teachers by funding professional development in the science of reading and covering the cost of stipends for teachers to participate in that instruction. 3, it will pay to provide additional literacy coaches to go into schools and districts most in need of support to help teachers implement best practices. Again, from what we have seen as we've traveled around the state, coaches are just vitally important. in the area of literacy or in any, frankly, any other subject. Coaches for teachers to continue to reemphasize the best practices that are available. For those children in Ohio who attend non-public schools, who attend independent schools, private schools, we have committed $26 million in federal COVID relief funds to pay for a range of education and support services, such as the training, literacy coaches needed to bring the science of reading to these classrooms as well. So every student in the state should have the ability to follow the science of reading and have the benefit of that. We want to make sure that no matter where a student goes to school, they have the best opportunity to learn to read. Today we're very excited to move ahead with what we're calling ReadOhio. As part of our new initiative, we're offering the following. One, a free online toolkit with resources for school leaders to use to start or continue the conversation about the science of reading with faculty and families. We're also promoting Read It Again, which is a free digital resource for early childhood educators. The curriculum supplement developed by the Crane Center for Early Childhood Research and Policy at The Ohio State University is designed to build the literacy and language skills of infants, toddlers, and pre-K students so they arrive at kindergarten with the skills they need to learn to read. We encourage child care centers to take full advantage of this free learning opportunity. We're also going to begin offering tips online for parents and caregivers to help our youngest children grow their literacy skills from an early age. Families will begin to see these resources on social media later this fall. Links to all of this material, including the video, and we're also making this video available to anyone that wants to use it. Links to all the materials I've mentioned will be available at education.ohio.gov/readohio. Reading is certainly the key that unlocks the door to just so many things. I want to move to another very important thing, and that's the Imagination Library. For our youngest Ohioans, we continue to promote Dolly Parton's Imagination Library of Ohio. For the past 4 years, Fran has devoted a lot of her time and passion and energy to making sure that this grows throughout the state of Ohio. No matter what zip code you live in Ohio, your child or your grandchild or your friend's child is eligible to sign up. I've asked Fran to talk a little bit about exactly where we are today in regard to the science of reading.
Well, since 2019, when we started, more than 12.5 million Imagination Library books have been mailed to the children in Ohio. This month, more than 58% of Ohio's kids ages birth to age 5 are receiving books every single month. As I'm sure all of you know, I've said it so many times, I think everybody knows, but it's a free book every single month from a time a child is born until they turn 5 years old. So the book comes in the mail addressed to the child, and so it's a lot of fun just having it right there in their homes. So we're up to about 387, almost 388,000 kids now that are signed up statewide that get the books every single month, which just happens to be more than any other state. Recently, we've seen an uptick in the registrations. We had over 5,000 new registrations just last month alone. The Imagination Library is an excellent program to ensure that our youngest Ohioans have access to books, which is one of the biggest predictors of success as they grow. Dolly Parton's Imagination Library of Ohio focuses on putting more books in the homes of children under the age of 5, which is when critical cognitive development occurs. In fact, 90% of a child's brain is developed by the time the child turns 5 years old. So we want to make sure that every child enters kindergarten prepared and ready to leave. And I think just anecdotally, Mike and I, as we're out at county fairs and things, and we're walking around, and if, you know, Mike sort of, if he sees someone pushing a stroller and a couple kids in it, he'll go up and say, now are your kids signed up? But for the Imagination Library, and almost all the time, the families say yes, and then they tell us a great story about how they read together more, you know, how their bedtime has changed, all these things. I think it's not just the books that we're getting, we're changing parents too, in the way they read to their kids and think about reading to their kids.
So really, in summary, we're all in about reading. We're going to continue to do everything that we can to push this out. Later on, we'll talk about what we're doing in our prisons, what we're doing in jails. Everybody needs to have this opportunity. Let me now introduce Interim Superintendent of Public Instruction, Chris Woolard, who will tell us more about how schools can prepare to implement the science of reading. Chris? Chris.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor and First Lady DeWine. I am so excited to be here to talk about some of the resources that we have available through ReadOhio. So much energy at the beginning of the school year. I know my own kids are geared up. Many of you probably have kids that are getting up. My wife's first day was today, and there's just so much energy around the beginning of the school year. And so it's really imperative that we talk about these key resources and many of the new things that are happening in classrooms across the state. As the video pointed out, only about 60% of our third graders are reading proficient. We know through data that students who are not proficient readers are much less likely to hit any number of key markers of success, whether that's graduation or any other measures of sort of college and career readiness. That third grade proficiency is really, really key in making sure that students are prepared for what comes next in their educational experience. We know that many schools, and you saw some of them in the video, are already doing work and have instruction and materials aligned to the science of reading, but we must ensure that all Ohio classrooms and students have curriculum and instruction that is aligned to the science of reading. And so through the leadership of Governor DeWine and Lieutenant Governor Husted, as well with the partners at the General Assembly, we are committed to moving Ohio students forward. Decades of reading research has provided strong evidence for what it takes to have proficient readers in our classrooms. And through ReadOhio, we have many resources available now, as well as more information that's going to be available on the new requirements that the governor mentioned throughout the coming year. These include resources to support our youngest learners, birth through age 5, as well as students in kindergarten through grade 12. And again, many of these supports are available through right now. A few examples that I want to mention. The department's annual Literacy Academy on Demand provides short learning sessions from national experts on a variety of topics with tangible steps that educators can take right now in their classrooms, in their coaching sessions, in their team meetings to improve literacy instruction. There's already literacy specialists within Ohio's educational service centers and state support teams that are currently providing literacy support across the state. The investments in the recent budget bill are only going to bolster all this work. One of those things is an investment in literacy coaches. We've been out in classrooms and know the importance of having literacy coaches and supporting this work. The budget bill provides for 100 literacy coaches to be hired to support this work in schools and districts throughout the state, focused on the schools and districts with the lowest proficiency rates. We have 4 regional coordinators that have been hired in partnership with our educational service centers that are in the process of recruiting and hiring these literacy coaches, and we expect many of those to be in place and supporting schools and districts this fall. Today, we are pleased to announce more resources through a toolkit. Again, there's lots of resources. We've got sort of the handout, but again, as Governor DeWine mentioned, at the department's website, which is www.education.ohio.gov/ReadOhio, many resources available for educators, teachers, and families. This includes tips, for superintendents who are trying to understand the new requirements. And again, there are many schools out there that are already doing this important work, but there are many more schools and districts that are going to be implementing new requirements. And it's important that they understand what's out there and all the things that are available to them. There's resources available to help families understand these new requirements and tips for how they can help work with their students, including more information on the Dolly Parton Imagination Library and the great resources that are available through there. The website, the toolkit, is going to include information on the timeline to educate professionals throughout the activities that are going to happen throughout this year and the new requirements that are in place. One of those first things is essentially a survey that's going to go out later this summer, early this fall, that's going to gather more information on the professional development activities, instructional materials across the state that all schools and districts are using. And that's something that schools and districts are going to be asked to complete in the coming month or so. The timeline identifies new requirements around professional development and training activities for teachers, as well as timeline and information around this selection of high-quality instructional materials. Again, all schools and districts are going to have to implement these materials that are aligned to the science of reading. All of our kindergarten and first grade teachers were required to complete dyslexia professional development training, and roughly 25,000 teachers have already completed that training. This year, second and third grade teachers will be required to complete that training, which is available now. We will continue to add to the toolkit as more resources and more information becomes available, so continue to please keep checking back on that website. So along with Governor DeWine, Lieutenant Governor Husted, the department is very excited about the focus and commitment to raising literacy achievement for all learners. We look forward to working and supporting Ohio's districts, parents, and families to ensure that all students can be reading at grade level. And I'll now turn it back over to the
Thanks,
Governor.
Chris.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Happy to take any questions.
What does it take to become a literacy coach? What is a literacy coach? And can, someone who's retired, who's looking for a little job, is that something they can do, or is this something that you're really looking for certified teachers to do?
I think we're looking for a skill set. These are folks who understand this work, who understand what it takes to teach. Many times they may be teachers, but against people who have this kind of experience, but also because they are working with adult learners too. So it's having that skill set and they not only know what it takes to teach reading and do it right, but also how to work with adults, how to work with teachers, how to work with administrators, and be able to bring all that together. And we can definitely share some more information on. There's a position description that sort of lays out what goes into that. But we're going to be hiring those through the educational service centers throughout the state. Again, focused on the lowest performing districts.
And so these people have teaching degrees.
In most cases, they'll have teaching degrees. Yes.
I think as you talk to teachers and as you talk to administrators, one of the things that I have picked up is the importance of coaches. I think maybe 10, 15 years ago, I'm not sure we thought a lot about that, but this is this is such a very important profession, and what they get in school is important, what they do student teaching is important, but that learning has to continue and has to be based on, for example, in regard to reading, it has to be based on the science of reading, it has to be based on the best information that we know. And I've talked to some coaches and who've explained, look, you just have to continue to reinforce this. It's so very, very, very important. And so, part of what we're doing is just saying these coaches are important. We provided in the budget for 100. I don't know that 100 is enough, candidly. And we're going to have to watch this. We're going to monitor this. This is something I'm going to be personally involved in, particularly when you're dealing with coaches in anything, but coaches particularly in regard to reading is just vitally important. And we're going to really focus on that.
Governor, issue 1 failed this week. Why do you think that is?
Let me see if we got any other questions on this, and I'll come right back. Okay. Any other questions on this, and then we'll go to other issues as we always do.
I'm wondering, how will you describe the feedback so far?
Describe the feedback?
Yeah, so far.
Look, I think that the feedback has been good. I mean, first of all, when we made this presentation, when we first started talking about this in the state of the state, from that time forward, and including in the budget, we really got bipartisan support for the science of reading. It's had virtually no opposition. So, you know, I think there is a consensus that certainly has evolved. As I said, you know, as a former county prosecuting attorney, the jury's back. The jury's reached a verdict, and the verdict is the science of reading is really the way to go. So I don't think there's been opposition. I think the challenge is that many teachers were not taught this way, and through no fault of their own, when they went to school, they were not taught that way. And so this is a big change for many teachers. It's a big change for many classrooms and many schools, and it's not going to be done overnight. But we're going to be pushing it because we understand the importance of it. But we also understand that ultimately what happens in that school building, is the most important thing. And we're trying to give the schools the curriculum. We're trying to give them the resources they need for teachers to be trained, and give them the tools that they need so they can accomplish that at that classroom level, at school building level. Anybody else on this issue?
So a lot of the focus, both with the dyslexia screening and the science of reading, is on K through 3 and hitting that 3rd grade literacy test. And I understand the importance of that, but what are you doing for, say, older students, particularly middle and high school students who have gotten to that level and maybe still can't read well?
I think that's a very, very good point. One of the most dramatic moments that Fran saw and I saw was when we talked to a student who was in high school, and the student basically said, they gave up on me. I didn't think I could ever read, but the intervention specialist started working with me and started using the science of reading in working with me, and I can now read. And that young man's life was totally changed. So the science of reading works for kindergarten kids, it works for 5th graders, it works for an adult, it will work for an adult who is in prison, who maybe one of the reasons they ended up in prison is because they can't read. So it works. And so we give up on no one. We have to make this available to everyone, because we all know of all the different skill sets there are in education that we learn. They're all important. But reading is the key that unlocks the door to so many other things and many opportunities in life. And we, again, as I said so many times, our goal is that every Ohioan have the ability to live up to their God-given potential. And to be able to read is absolutely essential to be able to do that in the world we live in today.
Is there a sense of how many Ohio school districts aren't currently using the science of reading?
No, there's not, and the superintendent can correct me, but the last I asked the department, we didn't know that, but you can answer that.
Yeah, and that is one of the early activities. So we will be collecting information and collecting data to know exactly what everybody across the state is doing, and that's one of the early things that's going to happen this fall.
Anything else on this topic?
Similarly, what's your sense of the teacher prep programs in this state, and how bought in they are to this, and what it's going to take to sustain this for teachers who are in the classroom a few years from now?
They're getting bought in. I mean, look, the reality is, I think the weight of evidence is so strong now that even schools that were not really focusing on the science of reading, I think now get it. What we heard from, Fran, I heard from teachers is that when they went to school, a lot of different things were taught to them about reading. You know, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. So there was not the real emphasis, for many of them at least, on the science of reading. That is changing. I think also that the customer now, and the customer is the teacher or the student who's going to be a teacher, but also the customer is the school that's going to hire that person coming out of the Ohio State University or OU or Bowling Green or Miami. Those schools are going to insist that that student who now is their new teacher has been prepared in regard to the science of reading. So I think that push is going to help as well. So, you know, this is a process. We're not going to get there overnight, but as governor, I'm going to be standing there pushing it as just as hard as I can push it. So.
Governor, your education director is ultimately going to oversee this push. What kind of background do you want that person to have when you nominate them?
Well, I'm not, you know, look, we're in the process of doing this, so we obviously want someone who has some experience in education. We will remain a local government state. We will remain a state that delivers its educational services through over 600 school districts as well as a number of private schools. So I think, you know, that realization and hands-on understanding of what goes on out there is important. So it doesn't mean that that person has to have been a superintendent. It doesn't mean anything specific, but it does mean, I think, that that person has to grasp what goes on in the classroom. They have to grasp what goes on in the school building, because that is how it is delivered in Ohio, and we are not going to change that. We are a state of local government and local education, but what has changed, obviously, is that now the governor has responsibility in this area, and I take that responsibility very seriously. And the first thing that we have to do is obviously pick the right people for those three separate positions. Anybody else on anything on this? Okay. Question again.
Yeah, issue 1, why do you think voters rejected it?
Well, first of all, the people of Ohio have spoken. They have spoken in regard to the issue about what percentage it should take to change the Constitution. I think that is abundantly clear. The people have spoken. We need to accept that. People need to accept that. Second, I'll leave it to others to do the full analysis of why the votes turned out the way they turned out. I'm not going to get into that in great detail. I will say that while certainly some people who were voting, the abortion issue was foremost on their mind for many people on both sides of this. I personally know people and have talked to people who are pro-life who simply were very uncomfortable, to say the least, with the idea of changing the percentage. So people who are pro-life, but they said, look, this issue is not about that today. The issue is about, is it going to take a supermajority? Is it going to take 60% to change the Constitution? And so I don't, what we should take away, I think, from this vote is the people have spoken in regard to what it's going to take to change the Constitution. Abortion is a different issue, and I want to talk in answer to your question, maybe a little bit more about that. Look, since Roe was overturned, this matter has come back to the states. It's come back to the people. It's come back to being dealt with in the political process. Those of us who thought that Roe was incorrectly decided have always felt that, and really what we were saying is it needs to come back. It needs to come back to the states. So we are now in this process. It is a process that is going to take some time. We have to go through that process. In regard to that process, just a couple maybe comments. One, we need to do this in a civil way. We need to do this with great respect for people on the other side of the abortion issue. There are people on both sides who are smart, intelligent, and very good people who have very different views about the issue of abortion. We have to respect that, and we have to ask people on both sides, yes, the political process should take place. You should debate this out. Ultimately, the goal is that we, and I truly believe we will end up here, that we will end up in the state of Ohio with a policy on abortion that is accepted, that people are comfortable, that the majority of the people accept and a majority of the people are comfortable with. That is ultimately the goal. But again, how we go about this, I think, is very, very important. And we're, of course, in the midst of that process. I think we also need to remember that we can do more than one thing at a time. And that there are a lot of very important public policy issues that we have to work on. One of them, while this debate about abortion is going on. And in almost all of these cases, we do have a consensus today. There is a consensus today about reading, what we're talking about today. There is a consensus that we need early childhood education, and we have to continue to invest in early childhood education. I think there's a consensus, no matter where you are on abortion. I think there's a consensus that we need to help moms who, because of poverty, because of any number of reasons, need help. Help them have a healthy baby, help them have a baby that has the full chance to live up to their God-given potential. Housing, wherever I go in the state, housing is an issue. We have to continue to work. We made some progress in the budget. We have to frankly do more. Child care. Look, we didn't get as far as I wanted to get in regard to child care, but we have not given up on that. We're going to continue to look for ways that we can help. In all of these cases, there is a general consensus of what needs to be done. And so, again, as we debate abortion and as we do what is part of our political process, I think we need to keep all of that in mind. It is natural to have disagreements. We're going to have disagreements, but I think it's important to do this in the proper way. We will ultimately achieve, I'll say this again, we will ultimately achieve in this state a policy on abortion that is accepted by the majority of the people of the state of Ohio. It's important that we keep that ultimate goal in mind. It may take a while. The issue that's on the ballot, the constitutional amendment, does not do that. It does not have the support. It's not where the majority of the people are in the state of Ohio. And I will be talking in the weeks and months ahead about this in much, much more detail. So, some people have raised the issue, what about the General Assembly? And look, all of us understand the difference between something in the Constitution and something that's passed by the General Assembly. We now know that this issue, what I consider to be a radical approach to the abortion policy that I don't believe is accepted by the majority of the people of the state, that's going to be on the ballot. And so there's nothing the legislature can do at this point that would override any of that. So I think we need to stay focused on the issue. Again, I'll have the opportunity, and many other people will as well, to talk about this in the months ahead. But the legislature, frankly, can't do anything about it at this point. It now goes to the people, and we'll debate this out and see where the people are in November. But again, ultimately, there's an awful lot of other things that we need to work on at the same time, and we can do more than one thing at a time. We can do multiple things at a time.
And last winter, you said that because of all the criticism that the 6-week abortion ban is facing, that we should look at it again, how are you evaluating the 6-week ban ahead of the November election?
Look, I think once this issue was put on the ballot, and now we know it is on the ballot, the focus in trying to see where Ohio is going to come out, this is a step-by-step process. Now that this constitutional amendment is on the ballot, we need to focus on that and nothing more. I will again say that ultimately the goal is to have something that can be acceptable by the majority of the people of the state of Ohio, and I am confident that we will reach that, and we will reach that in a civil way, and we will reach that in a way that respects everyone's opinions as we move forward. So the focus today, and until this issue is resolved, the constitutional amendment, we have to focus on that constitutional amendment. It's a constitutional amendment that I believe is a radical approach. I think it's not consistent with what the vast majority of the people of the state of Ohio want to see. The burden, just as the burden of proof in the election of this past Tuesday was on those people who said we need to change the Constitution, and we want a yes vote, and that will change it to 60%. They had the burden of proof. In the fall, the burden of proof for, again, what I consider to be a radical approach, the burden of proof is on those who are the proponents of the constitutional amendment. But we'll have ample time to talk about this, and this will play out over the weeks and months ahead.
Governor, you've said that you want to land at a place where the majority of Ohioans all agree on abortion. So if the abortion amendment in November passes, do you think that should be the final word on abortion? Do you think that we should basically say that standard, at least more or less, should remain intact?
Well, I think we have to play this out. I mean, again, this is not, the people who write the amendment get to write the amendment, and they get to say what the language is, and they get to put it on the ballot. So I think look, we have to go through this debate. We have to see where people are, and I think I'll be in a better position to answer that question after we go through this process. Again, it is a process. It is not a process that, sometimes is pretty, but it is a process that we all can get through. And I have confidence that the people of the state of Ohio can get through this. We can do it the right way. We can keep focused on all the things that we do agree on. We can try to work our way. And how long it takes us to work our way to that goal, I don't know. But we will reach that goal. And I'm going to do everything in my power to see that we can stay focused and try to get to that ultimate goal.
What do you make of President Huffman's suggestion that issue 1 or something very similar to it is going to come back? Maybe not next year, but...
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, so, my crystal ball has never been, have to dust it out. Look, I think at the beginning of my comments about this in response to the question, I said I think the issue is settled. And I think the people have spoken, they have spoken. And so I would not look for this to come up certainly not in the immediate future.
So you don't plan to meet with Senator Huffman prior to January?
I'm sure I'll meet with Senator Huffman a lot of times.
And tweak
No,
the current
no. We have to focus on what's in front of us, and we have to do it in a good way, and we'll have a spirited debate, and we shouldn't be afraid of a spirited debate. We shouldn't be afraid of that. We're adults, we can handle this, we can go through it, and we can still do it at the same time, focus on reading and focus on early childhood education, all the things that we've got to do at the same time. We can do that. We're Ohioans, we're tough, we're strong, we're resilient, we can do it.
So what
do you think
specific...
an abortion law that most Ohioans would be comfortable with?
Look, I think we take one issue at a time. What's clearly in front of us is a constitutional, I'll emphasize this again, a constitutional amendment. And that has to be the focus. Once that is dealt with, whatever the results are, then we can deal with other things.
So what specific elements of the constitutional amendment do you see that you think Ohioans would be uncomfortable with, that you
Yeah,
would
look,
like to
look,
see in a resolution?
you're going to get tired of me talking about this. So you're going to have an ample opportunity, but we're only 2 days away from one election. It's still August. We're focused on kids going back to school. There's going to be ample time to talk about this. I think that, you know, if you look at this, if the language of the constitutional amendment, I'll just give you a little hint. The language of the constitutional amendment is always what we have to look to. And, you know, I think the evidence is clear. After we go through the debate, the evidence is clear that this is would make Ohio have one of the most liberal abortion laws in the country, and we would be California, we would be New York State, and that's not where Ohioans are. Ohioans are just not there. I think it's, again, I want to emphasize, this is a process, and this constitutional amendment is what's in front of us now. We have to go through the process. We're going to get to where we have a policy that the majority of Ohioans can say, yeah, it's okay. But that's not going to, what's in front of us, the only thing that's in front of us is this constitutional amendment, which I consider to, and I'll talk more about it in more detail, I consider to be a radical position, a position that will not be agreed to by the majority of Ohioans, or it's not where the majority of Ohioans are in regard to abortion.
We have time for 2 more questions.
I know you said you think it's too late for the legislature to act, but do you have any concern that people might look at, say, the heartbeat bill and say, I don't like that more than I don't like this amendment? Like, there may be people who choose the amendment over what?
Well, I think, look, I think the only thing in front of us now is a constitutional amendment. And again, do you like the constitutional amendment? Do you not like the constitutional amendment? And the only thing I would say, again, in answer to your specific question is, we will get to a point in this state where the majority of people will have an abortion policy that the majority of the people will be able to accept and will be able to say, yes, that's okay. I'm comfortable with that. Understanding that this is a topic that people don't want to talk about. It's a topic that people are very uncomfortable with. But ultimately, that is the goal. I don't think we get to that goal with this constitutional amendment. I've already said some things about this, but at this point, there's nothing that the legislature can do simply because the constitutional amendment Constitution always preempts what a piece of legislation will be passed.
Can I ask you about the latest officer-involved shooting in Columbus? It's the 10th so far this year. The police union says there have been 112 felony assaults committed against officers. What's your message today?
Well, I guess I have a lot of messages. We are a local government state in regard to police. We have close to 1,000 police agencies in the state of Ohio. But the state needs to do what it can do. And you know, Andy Wilson, who heads up public safety, we have done a number of different things to help local police departments. Probably the most important thing we did is provide, I think well over $100 million in regard to money going directly back to police departments. That's going back, and that will continue to go back. We have set up what's called ONIC, which is an opportunity for police departments that need help in taking data out of a computer or data out of a cell phone. We're there to help do that. And there's other things that we have done to help local police departments. We also have talked and made it clear to different cities in the state that are facing problems that we can come in at their request and come in with a package. And the package includes having the highway patrol be more active within their city at their request, the mayor's request, the chief of police request, and we have done that. and you're going to see us do that more. We also can make parole officers available. Again, we have people in every city who are under parole, and making sure that these people don't have guns, to making sure these people are following what they should do, having parole officers come in. We also can do aerial work from above. So there's a whole package that we can put together at the request of any city to come in. Having said that, ultimately, it's important for that local city, and I'm not talking any particular city, but city or village, to have enough police officers on the street, and to enable them to do, and to back them up, and to enable them to do the work that they need. I mean, that's kind of basic. The final thing I will say is that if we want uniformity in policing in the state of Ohio, we have to come up with training that will be of assistance to every police department in the state. We have uneven police training in the state of Ohio today, and it's usually because of the size of the department and the resources of the department. Irrespective of the size of the village or the resources, we have to have uniformity in police training. And so one of the things that you're going to see us do when we present to the General Assembly the new capital bill, there's going to be a significant amount of money in that capital bill for scenario-based training facilities. And those need to be built in Ohio, and then we need to staff them. And ultimately, frankly, we need to have a permanent resource of money. Other states have money that's set aside when it comes in. For example, Kentucky, they charge so much on every policy, insurance policy that's written, and that money goes into a fund. We're going to have to do something like that. Again, it's going to be something we'll work out with the legislature, but we have to have a source of funding for that police training. So all of those things are important. The most immediate thing we can do is, as I said, is to come in and we can surge in, and we can work with cities to do that.
Should Columbus ask for that help? Is it that time?
Look, this is open to any department. Look, I have a very good working relationship with the mayor. Mayor and I talk. We're happy to do that. I mean, there's a limit. We can't replace what the city is doing. We don't want to replace. They don't want us to replace. But we can add to what they're doing, and that certainly is available.
You could have cut a video supporting issue 1. You could have hit the rubber chicken circuit hard for it. Why didn't you do that? And what do you make of criticism from some on the right who think that you weren't active enough promoting it?
Look, when something passes with that kind of margin, and I've learned this through 15, 16 campaigns, and a number of those statewide. I think I've run more for statewide office than at least anybody who's active in politics today. When you win with that kind of majority, don't fault the campaign, don't fault your strategy. It just wasn't going to happen. Thank you very much.
Sorry to discourage the chicken.
Governor, one more question. Columbus city leaders are calling for what they say are common sense gun laws. What do you think about that?
I've talked about what my position is on that. I'm not going to elaborate on it today. I've made said what I am for. Some of what I've got through the legislature. Some of it I've not. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Can I just confirm one thing? I know in the past you've talked about legislative tweaks